In the 1820s, along the Missouri River, Captain Andrew Henry and his group of trappers set up camp to collect pelts and leather. Henry tells their lead trapper, John Fitzgerald, to prepare for the journey back the next day. Not far from camp, a young trapper named Jim Bridger arrives, asking for help to carry a large elk he has hunted. The others joke with him, saying they will come later when it is time to eat, keeping the mood light for a moment. But that calm breaks instantly when an arrow suddenly strikes one of the men in the throat. Fear spreads through the camp as the men rush to take cover behind trees, scanning the forest for the attackers. By the time they spot movement, it is already too late. The group is surrounded. Believing the attack is about their valuable pelts, the captain quickly orders his men to hold their ground and defend the camp. Gunfire echoes through the trees, cutting through the quiet of the forest. Hearing the shots from a distance, the scout Hugh Glass rushes back toward the camp with his son Hawk. The moment he arrives, Glass understands the situation and immediately tells everyone to retreat to the boats while still fighting back. Some men stay behind to cover the others, while the rest run toward the river. The escape is chaotic, and many are lost along the way. In the end, only a small group manages to survive, pushing their boats into the Missouri River and drifting away from the attack. The attackers are a group of Native Americans known as the Reuenant. They are not after the pelts. Instead, they are searching for their chief's missing daughter, believing she has been taken and sold. Their anger has been building for days, driving them to strike without hesitation. On the boat, the survivors remain unaware of the real reason behind the attack. Glass studies the situation and advises the captain to leave the river, explaining that it makes them easy to track. Fitzgerald disagrees, insisting the river is their fastest way out and pushing back against the idea. Despite this, the captain decides to follow Glass's advice. The decision creates tension, especially with Fitzgerald, whose frustration begins to turn into quiet resentment. After reaching land, the group hides their pelts and prepares to move on foot through the forest. Fitzgerald continues to complain under his breath, blaming the captain for the change of plan. His frustration soon shifts toward Glass and his son Hawk. He openly questions Glass, bringing up rumors that Glass once killed an officer, suggesting it was done to protect his half-Pawnee son.
That what you did? Shot one of your own to save this little dog right here? We gonna fight, son? That's enough!
Before things get worse, the captain steps in and breaks the tension. As Fitzgerald walks away, Glass scolds Hawk, reminding him not to react to such insults. Later, after sending the boat down the river as a distraction, the group begins their long journey on foot through the wilderness. Along the way, the captain, still curious, asks Glass if the story about the officer is true. Glass says nothing and simply keeps walking. Later, while the others stop to rest, Glass moves ahead alone to scout the area. The forest is quiet, but then he hears movement in the brush. He raises his rifle, ready to react, only to find two small bear cubs. Then, without warning, Mama Bear attacks. It is brutal and relentless as she bites and claws at him again and again. Glass struggles, but he quickly realizes he cannot overpower her. Instead, he goes still, forcing himself to stay quiet and pretend to be dead. After a few moments, the bear steps away. Barely able to move, Glass reaches for his rifle. He gathers what little strength he has left and fires, hitting the bear. But she rushes him again, tearing into his throat and ripping deep wounds across his body. Even then, Glass refuses to give up. As the two struggle, he manages to stab the bear repeatedly. They fall together down a slope, locked in the fight. When it finally ends, the bear collapses on top of him, dead, while her cubs watch from nearby. Not long after, the others hear the gunshot and follow the sound. They arrive at the scene and quickly push the bear off Glass. The sight is shocking. His throat is torn open, his body covered in deep wounds, and his leg twisted badly. But somehow he is still alive, holding on. Fitzgerald sees his condition and suggests ending his suffering quickly. But Captain Henry refuses to give up on his scout. Instead, he does what he can, forcing Glass unconscious to ease the pain while stitching the wounds with whatever they have, rags, a needle, and whiskey. Elsewhere in the forest, the rediscover the abandoned boat and realize the group has moved inland. With a clear direction now, they begin tracking them through the woods. That night, their chief meets a group of French trappers to trade. He offers stolen pelts in exchange for horses and weapons. At first, the French hesitate, unwilling to give up their horses. But when the chief makes it clear he will take them by force if necessary, they reluctantly agree. Back with the group, Bridger quietly cuts off the bear's claws and places them in Glass's bag, holding on to the hope that he might survive. In the days that follow, the journey becomes slower and more exhausting. The men take turns carrying Glass, moving from one place to another under the captain's orders. Even Fitzgerald continues, though his patience is clearly wearing thin. As they reach a steep mountain, the strain becomes too much. Arguments begin to rise. Some of the men, led by Fitzgerald, insist they cannot keep going like this, especially with the Ree getting closer. With no easy choice left, the captain finally accepts the reality of the situation. He prepares himself to end Glass's life, believing it may be the only mercy left. But when the moment comes, he cannot do it. Instead, he offers a reward, $100 to anyone willing to stay behind and care for Glass until he dies. Bridger immediately agrees, saying he will stay without taking any money. Hawk does the same, refusing payment and choosing to remain with his father. Fitzgerald watches this, then speaks up. He agrees to stay as well, but only if he receives the full reward meant for all of them. The captain hesitates. He does not trust Fitzgerald, but he has no other option. In the end, he leaves Glass in their care and continues forward with the rest of the group, carrying the weight of that decision with him. Days pass and Glass drifts between life and death, his body burning with fever. Through the pain, he hears his son's voice repeating the same words he once said, "Keep fighting as long as you live." As those words echo, memories begin to surface. Glass recalls the past, when soldiers attacked their village, burning everything and killing his wife. He remembers holding his young son, badly injured, telling him to stay alive and keep fighting no matter what. Now, those same words return to him, pushing him to hold on. Meanwhile, Fitzgerald grows more impatient with each passing day. He has already prepared a shallow grave, ready for what he believes is inevitable. When Bridger asks about Glass's injured head, Fitzgerald casually explains that the Ree have prepared to take his scalp, thinking he was already dead. As he speaks, Bridger nervously scratches his water bottle, and the small sound suddenly irritates Fitzgerald, causing him to snap and yell at him to stop. Later, while Bridger and Hawk head toward the river to gather water and fish, Fitzgerald stays behind with Glass. Seeing an opportunity, he leans closer and begins speaking to him. He claims that all of them will die if they stay any longer, and tells Glass it would be better to let go. He then asks Glass to blink if he is ready to die. Glass struggles to resist, trying to keep his eyes open, but his body is too weak. Fitzgerald watches closely, waiting, and eventually, Glass blinks. Taking it as an answer, Fitzgerald presses a cloth over Glass's face, trying to suffocate him. At that moment, Hawk returns and immediately stops him. He calls out for Bridger, who is still some distance away. Before help can arrive, Fitzgerald quickly covers Hawk's mouth and stabs him in the belly. Glass can do nothing but watch. Unable to move or speak, he lies there as his son dies in front of him. By the time evening comes, Bridger returns with fish, unaware of what has happened. He asks where Hawk is, but Fitzgerald turns the question back on him, pretending Hawk was with him. Bridger becomes confused.
I understand, Mr. Blaze. It's all right.
Early the next morning, Fitzgerald suddenly wakes Bridger in a panic, claiming that a group of Ree warriors is approaching. Fear takes over, and Bridger does not know what to do. Without wasting time, Fitzgerald drags Glass to the shallow grave and buries him alive, saying there is no time left. He then runs off, forcing Bridger to follow. Before leaving, Bridger hesitates for a moment, then quietly leaves his water bottle behind for Glass.
I'm sorry.
Time passes, and no sign of the Ree ever appears. Somehow, Glass begins to move again. With only one working arm and one leg, he slowly pulls himself out of the grave. Every movement is painful, but he keeps going. As he drags himself forward, he eventually finds Hawk's body. He collapses beside him, overcome with grief, and lies there in silence. The next morning, Fitzgerald prepares to continue the journey, acting as if nothing has happened. But as he speaks, he accidentally changes his story, mentioning a different number of attackers than before. Bridger notices the inconsistency. Suspicion grows, and he raises his gun, demanding the truth. Fitzgerald finally admits that there were no Ree. He claims he only lied to save them both, arguing that staying with Glass would have meant certain death. He even insists that Bridger should be grateful. Bridger is shaken, caught between anger and doubt. Sensing hesitation, Fitzgerald grabs Bridger's gun and points it at him. Then, without warning, he pulls the trigger. The gun clicks empty. Glass slowly makes a decision to survive, driven by the need for revenge. Even with only one working arm and one leg, he begins to crawl across the forest floor. Along the way, he searches for anything he can eat, pulling scraps of food from animal remains just to stay alive. Each small step gives him a little more strength. He keeps moving forward. Behind him, the Ree eventually reach the abandoned camp, realizing how close they are to their target. The danger is slowly closing in. After a long struggle, Glass reaches the Grand River, which connects to the Missouri River. He kneels by the water, trying to drink, but the wound in his throat causes the water to spill out. Even so, the small amount he manages to take in eases his thirst slightly. Knowing he cannot leave the wound untreated, he makes a painful choice. He places gunpowder on his throat and burns it shut, stopping the bleeding. Days pass as he stays near the riverbank. His body slowly begins to recover, and for the first time, he manages to stand, even if only for a short moment. But the danger returns. One day, the Ree arrive at the river, unaware that Glass is hiding nearby. With no time left to hide, he throws himself into the water and lets the current carry him away. Arrows and gunshots follow him, cutting through the air, but he manages to avoid them as the river pulls him farther downstream. Once again, he survives. Far away, Fitzgerald and Bridger continue their journey across Dakota. At one point, they pass through a destroyed village. Among the ruins, Bridger notices a woman and quietly gives her some food before moving on, leaving behind a small moment of kindness. Later that night, while they are eating, Fitzgerald explains how his father trusted in religion. One day, his father's unit was ambushed by Indians. Only his father survived. But that wasn't the reason, he believed. Days later, starving and alone, his father saw a squirrel appear, as if disguised by God. So his father shot it and survived. To Fitzgerald, survival isn't about prayer. It's about action. Back in the wilderness, Glass rests near the river and falls into a troubled sleep. His dreams mix memories of his wife, his destroyed village, and Fitzgerald, all blending into one restless vision. He suddenly wakes and notices fish trapped in a shallow pool nearby. Without hesitation, he catches one and eats it raw, desperate to regain strength. Later, he hears movement and follows the sound. From a distance, he watches a herd of bison running, chased by wolves. He stays hidden and waits patiently until the hunt is over, hoping to take what is left behind. That night, however, someone else arrives first. A lone Pawnee man scares away the wolves and takes the dead bison. Glass approaches carefully, showing no threat and gestures that he only needs food. The man understands and shares the meat with him. By the next morning, the man sees the full extent of Glass's injuries. Glass shows him the claw necklace and gestures what has happened. The Pawnee man listens, then quietly explains that his own village has been destroyed. Still, he believes revenge is not his path and plans to head south to find what remains of his people. Glass chooses to follow him, knowing it may be his fastest way forward. At the same time, Fitzgerald and Bridger finally arrive at Fort Kiowa and reunite with the rest of the group. As planned, Fitzgerald lies to Captain Henry, claiming that Hawk went missing and that Glass was properly buried. The captain listens and accepts the story. He thanks them for staying behind and offers the promised reward, including extra for Bridger. Bridger, however, cannot accept it. Guilt weighs heavily on him, and without taking the money, he quietly walks away, unable to forget that they left Glass alive. As snow begins to fall, Glass and the Pawnee man move together through the cold wilderness. Despite everything they have lost, they share a quiet moment, catching snowflakes in their mouths. For a brief time, the journey feels lighter. But the storm grows stronger. Eventually, Glass collapses in the middle of the snow, his body finally giving in. Even so, the Pawnee man refuses to leave him behind. He builds a small shelter and does everything he can to lower Glass's fever, staying by his side through the harsh conditions. Days pass, and Glass slowly recovers again. When he wakes, he finds food left nearby. Realizing the man has gone ahead, he follows the trail, hoping to catch up. But what he finds instead stops him completely. The Pawnee man has been killed by a group of French trappers, the same group that traded with the Ree earlier. Glass stays hidden and watches their camp from a distance, waiting for night to fall. When darkness comes, he moves in quietly, planning to steal a horse and escape. He manages to prepare one, ready to leave, but then he notices something else. One of the trappers is assaulting a native woman. Glass pauses for a moment, then makes a choice. He steps in, grabs a gun, and points it at the man, forcing him to stop. The woman takes the chance, grabs a knife, and takes her own revenge. At the same time, Glass fires at another trapper and quickly escapes on horseback. As he rides away, he drops Bridger's water bottle without realizing it. By morning, the Ree catch up to him. They attack without warning, forcing Glass to push the horse harder while trying to defend himself. The chase turns dangerous, and suddenly, both horse and rider fall off a steep cliff. Branches break the fall, saving Glass's life. The horse is not as lucky. As the snow grows heavier, he makes a desperate decision. He cuts open the dead horse and crawls inside its body, using it as shelter from the cold. It keeps him alive through the night. By morning, he pulls himself out and continues forward, still driven by the same purpose. Back at Fort Kiowa, a French survivor arrives, weak and desperate. He begs for food, explaining that most of his group has died in the snow. The men demand he return the stolen pelts, but he has nothing left to offer. As he empties his belongings, Bridger quickly notices his water bottle. He immediately questions the man, who explains where he found it. Hearing this, Bridger and the others begin to believe that Hawk might still be alive. Without hesitation, they head out to search. Fitzgerald, however, stays behind. He knows the truth and chooses not to go. The search continues through the night, and in the end, they find someone, but it is not Hawk. It is Glass.
Jesus Christ! Take Bridger! Take Bridger!
The next day, Captain Henry returns to confront Fitzgerald, only to discover that he has already fled, taking money from the safe before leaving. The betrayal shifts his anger toward Bridger, who freezes there, overwhelmed with guilt. For a moment, it seems like Henry might act on his rage, but he stops himself. Instead, he orders the men to take Bridger away and lock him up. Afterward, Henry turns to Glass and quietly apologizes for what happened. Glass listens, then tells him that Bridger is innocent and did not understand the situation. He asks Henry to let the boy go. Then, without hesitation, he asks for a gun and a horse, knowing Fitzgerald is scared and running. And so, Glass and Captain Henry set out to track Fitzgerald. It does not take long before Glass finds the tracks in the snow. The trail is clear, and they follow it without slowing down. That night, as they rest, Henry opens up about his family, speaking quietly in the cold. He then asks Glass once more about the story he heard. This time, Glass answers. He says he did not kill a captain for no reason. He only killed a man who was trying to take his son's life. The next morning, they spot smoke rising in the distance and realize Fitzgerald is only a few miles ahead. Without wasting time, they split up to cover more ground. Glass reaches an abandoned campfire, still warm, showing how close he is. At the same time, Henry moves in from another direction, but he walks straight into an ambush. A gunshot echoes through the trees. Glass rushes toward the sound, only to find Henry already dead. His body has been scalped, made to look like the work of the Ree. He lifts Henry's body onto a horse and continues tracking Fitzgerald, his focus sharper than ever. After some distance, Glass stops and sets a plan. He transfers Henry's body onto his own horse, using it as a decoy, then heads to a site where Fitzgerald might be. As he expected, Fitzgerald soon appears and fires, believing he has found Glass. But as soon as he realizes the mistake, it is already too late. Glass shoots him, hitting his shoulder. Fitzgerald manages to escape and runs deeper into the forest. Glass follows without hesitation. The chase ends near a stream, where they fight with whatever they have, knife, axe, and bare hands. The fight is brutal and exhausting. Both are wounded, but Glass keeps pushing forward, driven by everything he has lost. In the end, he overpowers Fitzgerald and brings him down. For a moment, it seems like it will end there. But then the Ree arrive. Glass pauses, remembering the words of the Pawnee man who once helped him. Slowly, he lets go of his anger and drags Fitzgerald into the water, leaving him to the Ree. Without hesitation, they take him and kill him. Glass remains where he is, expecting his own end. But the Ree do not harm him. As they pass, he realizes why. Among them is the young woman he once saved, the chief's missing daughter. With her return, their purpose is complete. Glass is left alone. For a brief moment, he feels a sense of peace. In his final vision, he sees his wife standing before him. She looks at him gently, then turns and walks away. Glass remains still, watching her fade into the distance. He lost everything, but he never stopped crawling. Sometimes that's all we can do. If this story moved you, drop a like and share it with someone who needs to see what real grit looks like. Subscribe for more stories of survival and revenge.